Joseph was on. It's fine. I'll just speak a little bit louder. If I see some of you nod off, I'll just quieten back down again. Don't want to disturb you. As you know, when we started our church, Tracy and I made a very logical decision on how to pay our bills. So we thought, well, whatever work I do that pays our bills needs to finish on time, so it can't run over into silly overtime, because that would encroach on our ministry. It needs to pay reasonably well. It needs to be ultimately flexible. So I need to be able to choose my hours, and it needs to be you need to be able to wind it down over time. So driving instructing came out at the bottom, and so I went and trained up, and I did that for about 14 years. Now, I often think that there was some life lessons in driving instructing. I taught a lot of people how to drive, and it was never really my passion. My passion is for people, so I enjoyed that side of it. But my real passion is for people to live to their full potential. And so I want to give you one example of what's important in life. And one of the important things, as all you drivers and cyclists and walkers will know, is what? Where would you have to look when you're walking, driving, cycling, running, skiing, whatever? Where are you looking? Forward. Why is that important? Why is looking forward important?
You've got to have a goal.
You've got to have a goal, yeah?
See where you're going.
See where you're going.
Too many
Absolutely.
potholes in the road.
Too many, yeah, exactly. Yeah, they knock out your teeth.
Forward takes you to where you want to go.
Forward takes you to where you want to go. I like that. Yeah. Our kids were, when they were little, and yours will be the same, they're never very good at looking where they're going. And they're talking to you, and then they run into a lamppost. And it's very funny to watch. But the thing is, when you're walking, driving, whatever, you're going forwards, aren't you? Regardless of where you're looking. Right? Regardless of where you're looking. Brilliant example, didn't happen to me, but it happened to another driving instructor. They were driving along, and it was raining, and the bus was stopping in front of them. No reaction from the pupil. And the driving instructor said, is there any, there was time, is there anything that catches your attention? No reaction. Is there anything that might cause you to brake, in the immediate future, next 10 seconds, kind of? No reaction. He said, brake, there's a bus, and he went round, and afterwards I talked, where were you looking? And the pupil, no kidding, said, I was looking at the pretty rainbow patterns that I just made in the inside. But see, that's very pretty, isn't it? But you can't do that when you're going. If you're not driving, try this. Walk home looking at your toes. You can't even walk a straight line. You got to look where you're going. You got to live in the present. So when we're going, we'll look where we are going. But even better than that, and it's already come up a little bit, you got to look where you're going to. I'm always a stickler for that. You can't just look where you're going. You got to look where you're going to. Aim for something. Rather than just looking where you are and where you're going, you're going to raise your eyes a bit and look where you're going to. And that gets people to look a bit further. It's really difficult to teach people who've been walking all their life, and then suddenly they're not driving at 5 miles an hour anymore. They're driving at 40 miles an hour, but they still look as if they were walking 5 miles an hour. So they look like as far as Amanda's sitting from me. That's how far they look. But that's that doesn't take a second when you're driving. So you've got to look a bit further. How important is it in life to look a bit further on? To look where you're actually going to, rather than just where you are right now. You know, you've got to focus on something, aim for something, have goals, some dreams and hopes. You know, I want to achieve this. You know, and it doesn't really matter how old you are. You can still dream. You can still have hopes. You can still have goals and plans. You got to, even if it's as simple as having something to look forward to. How important is that when you wake up in the morning and the whole day is just grey and dull, and you don't want to get up? You got to cling on to a thought that is something to look forward to, like a cup of tea, or I don't know, your favorite TV show, or the sunshine, or something to look forward to. That's so important in life. Otherwise, it just feels like that treadmill that keeps going round and round and round, and you're running, but you're not actually getting anywhere. And life carries on, but you're not getting anywhere. And looking forward to something that's just so biblical. You know, think of the promised land. How long did the people of Israel look forward to the promised land? And it wasn't an easy journey, and it took them hundreds of years to get there. And they said it was sort of the land flowing with milk and honey. There were some battles to be fought, but it was still, they were looking forward to that. Listen to what God says in Jeremiah 29, 11 to 13. He says this, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and the future." Oh yeah. You know, that's something to look forward to. God's actually got good plans for you, no matter what age. You know, little ones and old ones. He has good plans for you. And the great thing is that we can step into those. And I think of the Apostle Paul. You know, he was a busy fella. You know, he was just restless, but he still had plans to go on to Rome, and then he wanted to get onto Spain and sort of put Jesus' flag in the land and claim it, that the gospel is proclaimed there too. There's a guy called Thomas Carlyle who I know nothing about, but here's a good quote. "Go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll be able to see further."
Yeah.
Go as far as you can see, and when you get there, you'll be able to see further. Sometimes we don't know the big grand plans, do we? Sometimes you just got to carry on, and one foot in front of the other, and then eventually you will come to a point of view where you can see a bit further. Sometimes we can't see the one great goal, achievement, aim, focus thing in the distance, and we just got to keep on walking. Just got to keep on walking until it comes into view. Think of Christopher Columbus, you know, sailing in the open sea. And what do? You can't see anything. You just keep going until you can. So if you're stuck in that, or you feel you're trapped in that, just sort of one step in front of the other, just persevere. And God will bring something into view that you can focus on and aim for. So when we're going, we look where we are going to. We focus on something. Now when we're driving, and you mentioned it already, we're not only looking where we're going to, but we also need to know what's happening behind. That's scary. There's far too few drivers who nod. Okay, I'll introduce you to this. It's called a mirror. All right. Because the potential danger can come from behind, right? If you've ever been in a traffic jam and then suddenly you see a truck and the driver's on his mobile phone eating a sandwich and not paying attention, changing the music channel, you know, rolling up a fag and not paying attention, is coming unbraked at you, you know that there is potential danger coming from behind. Right? You got to know what's coming from behind. You got to know what's happening behind you. Your past is affecting your future, obviously. You know, the way you've been brought up, the way you've been wired up, what your experiences are, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, shapes your future, inevitably. You know, if you've had a bad experience with a dog, because it bit you in the backside, 2 years ago, in the future, if a dog comes running at you, you're going to be scared because of what's happened behind. And that's just a trivial example. So there's patterns that have established themselves in the past. Things in a certain situation, you experienced that, you reacted like that. Next time the same situation comes up, you've experienced it, you react like that, and eventually a pattern establishes itself. You know what I mean, right? So, for example, very simple flight or fight. In certain situations, your established pattern will be flight. So if something goes ugly, if something goes wrong, if there's mistakes made, relationship difficulties, whatever it may be, your learned response might be flight. Well, sack this. You know, I'm just going to go. If you talk to me like that, I'm out of here. If you can't give me the hours that I ask you, then I'm going. And. That might not always be helpful. Right? Perhaps your immediate reaction is fight. So if somebody says something to you that you don't like, you go on the offensive and you fight them. And that might not always be the correct response either. But these are learned patterns that obviously affect your future relationships. Harry Bird and the Robert Wellies is a band that we sometimes have here. They wrote a song called Hit the Wall in Me. And it's basically about building up a wall to protect yourself. And he said, in one line he says, you don't know what's coming. And it's a shame. You don't know what it's coming when I'm finished with you. It's just a shame that the wall was never meant for you. So sometimes our learned response from the past was about a different situation, about a different relationship, about a different job, about a different circumstance altogether. But the learned response gets still put into place with a new relationship. And the poor chap or the poor lady never deserved it in the first place. Past hurts can affect our future. You know, when people have damaged you in the past, and then a similar situation arises again, a similar sentence gets said to you, and it just triggers all the emotions again, and all the hurt, and then you react to it. Certain behaviours in certain circumstances. I don't know, when you go out, certain behaviours trigger back in. When your mum and dad come to visit, you slip into certain behaviours. When you're in a certain circumstance with a certain group of people or in a certain environment, I don't know if you've noticed it, but your language changes, the way you talk changes, the way you interact changes, your moral guidelines change slightly. Look out for that. And it's all because it's got established in the past, but it's still happening in the future. The way you think, reactions, and so on. So sometimes our reactions are linked to the past, and then it's completely disproportionate the way we react to things in the present. Can you think of any examples? You don't, but perhaps you want to think about them, but perhaps you don't want to say them. That's fine. Some of those are so established that they're hardwired in our That's how our brain works. You do something often enough, you do something once, and there's a little connector established in our brain. It's neuroscience. A little connector. And every time we do the same thing, it connects again. And every time we do the same thing again, it connects stronger, and then it connects stronger. That's why when you learn cycling, eventually you get so good at it that there's connections established and you'll never unlearn it.
It's like my tom-tom. Just put the card on the ring. I don't know where I'm going, but I finish over there.
If you're lucky.
Some of those things that are hardwired in our brain aren't particularly helpful, are they?
No.
And it takes an awful lot of effort to unlearn these things. And so it's important sometimes to just pause and look in the mirror, to think, well, what's happened behind? What's happening behind me in my past that perhaps needs sorting out so that I can go better into the future? See, depending on what's happening behind, you might want to plan a different route. You might plan something different in the future. We need to relearn our reaction in a safe environment. Post-traumatic stress syndrome, that's one of the therapies that they do. They let the people relearn the reaction, but in a safe environment. So, soldiers, fireworks trigger off incredibly strong memories to where they've been and what they've experienced, yet it's safe. And so over time they try and rewire the brain almost. Past mistakes affect our future, right? When we've messed something up and then you come to a similar situation and sometimes you're almost too afraid to tackle it because you don't want to mess it up again. Here's what the Bible has to say about that. 1 John, often quoted, 1 John 1, verse 9 says this. That's the wrong quote. It's if we confess our sins, God is faithful and He will forgive. That's basically the gist of it. And then in 2 Corinthians 5:17, we are a new creation if we're in Christ Jesus. So the past doesn't actually need to affect us in the future as much as it would like us to think. Think about that for a moment. The past doesn't need to affect us as much as it would like us to think. We can't break the cycle. When things have gone wrong in the past, doesn't mean they need to go wrong in the future. We do have a choice. We do have a choice. We can plan our journey differently, take a different route, different time of the day, avoid certain circumstances, avoid certain circles of friends, avoid certain areas, be prepared for a reasonable response because you know what's going to come from behind into your emotions, into your mind, into your thinking, into your behavior. So you're prepared for a response. With driving, for example, if I'm driving up to a traffic light that's green and suddenly it changes to amber and I'm putting the brakes on really hard and I manage to stop, the truck behind me who wasn't looking, he's not going to manage to stop, he's going to just ram me and push me through the junction. Right? If I had looked a little bit of what was happening behind, I would have planned my whole approach to the situation differently. I perhaps would have carried on through the junction because I know I was going to go through it anyway. Plan your approach differently. Perhaps you need a bit more time in certain circumstances. If shopping really stresses you out, makes you anxious, all these people, all these offers, too much choice, whatever it may be, Perhaps you just need to go at the quieter time of the day. Go with a friend. Make sure that you're in and out within half an hour. You take a shopping list and you make a virtual walk through the shop and think these were the aisles and then I'm going. Whatever it takes, plan your approach. Make others aware around you. You know, so crucial in a relationship, in a marriage, when you talk about what's gone on behind you in the past. Look, 5 years ago I got really hurt in that situation. So when you say that to me, you probably don't mean that, but it triggers all of that. And so now you know why I react in a certain way. When you call me lazy now, it triggers all of this. When you criticize the dinner I've cooked, it triggers all of this. When you say you can't do it, it triggers all of this, what my dad said. And. But you know, behind is also good stuff. It's not just rubbish that we carry in our past. Behind's also good stuff. So that's worth remembering too. You know, I've done this before, and I've done it. So there's no reason I can't do it now. You know, I've tackled that successfully before. I've got through this in the past. I know I've got it within me. I can do it in the future too. Friends have been here for me before. There's no reason they should be against me now. You know, when somebody says something to you and you think, what the? Why? How can you do this to me? Just remember, that person is actually for you. There's no reason he should suddenly turn against you. Perhaps he just misunderstood, or he didn't get it out right, or perhaps there's something to talk about, but he's not against you. God has been with me up till now. There's no reason he's not going to be with me from now on. You know, remember, that's such an important Old Testament word. Remember. Wherever they went, God asked them to put a few stones together like an altar. And he said, remember, at this point, I did this for you. And at this tree, I did this for you. And just remember that God is with you. Remember the God of Isaac and Jacob and Joseph and Abraham. Just remember that I am with you and I'm for you. So when we're going, we look where we're going to, and we know what's happening behind. So sometimes we need to pause to assess what's happening behind. The problem is when the focus changes permanently. When people start living like this, right? They turn around and just focus on the past and they look what's ahead in the mirror. Because just because you're pausing, it doesn't actually mean that life is pausing, right? You still carry on. You still carry on forwards, whether you're looking where you're going or not. Life still carries on. Nothing else pauses whatsoever. Luke 9 verse 62 says, this is Jesus speaking, no one who puts his hand to the plough and looks back is fit for service in the kingdom of God. It's a similar picture, but if you're ploughing, you're obviously ploughing forwards. No ox can plough backwards, right? So you're behind, but if you're doing this, then inevitably you're going to go off track. You're going to go somewhere else unless you focus to something at the end of the field. You're still going forward into the future, whether you're looking where you're going, whether you're making plans or not, you're still going forwards. And that's tricky, isn't it? Because then you can't see where you're going and you're going to trip over all sorts of stuff. You know, as much as we would like to, you can't redo stuff in the past. It's just not possible. If past is all you look at, then you're just turning into a spectator. 'Cause you just can't do that. Look at it. You can't change it. You can't redo it. You can't turn the clock back, obviously. You can't affect the past. You're just watching, whilst the future, which you can affect, is just happening behind you. And then you trip over stuff. And then you also start missing out on good stuff. Because they don't come into proper focus until they whiz past you. And you're missing out because you're looking backwards on stuff that you can't change. You're missing out on good things in life. Friends, relationships, sunshine, fun to be had, whatever. Here's an interesting thought from Isaiah 43. Forget the former things, do not dwell on the past. See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it? You know, God's doing a new thing all the time. Future is always new. It's always happening now and in the next second and in the next second after that. If we just presume that the future looks like the past, then we're truly missing out. God's doing a new thing, and He wants to do a new thing with you. Just because the past was terrible doesn't mean the future needs to be. Just because you've messed up in the past doesn't mean you need to mess up again. God's doing a new thing. Don't presume the future looks like the past. And just consider what living life through a rearview mirror does to your relationships, right? All people around you can see is the back of your head, which in my case is wonderful. But it doesn't do anything for relationships, does it? If the people close to you just see the back of your head, rather than have proper eye contact with you, then you're isolating yourself in your past. See, people can live the future with you and walk alongside you and encourage you and sometimes be a step ahead of you to spur you on. But they can't live the past with you because that's your past, not theirs. And you can't live there either. You can just watch. The past's already done. So when we're going, we'll look where we're going to, knowing what's behind us, but still looking forward.